Did you know that the Romans commonly practiced magic? Well, it was one of the limited options for restoring justice in a world with no police force. You would take a piece of lead, sometimes from a pipe or recycled from a building, or basically whatever you could get your hands on, scratch a curse into it, roll it up, nail it, and then throw it somewhere where the gods could find it. And then it was the gods' problem. This is a practice called defixiones, meaning to bind, fasten, or nail down. And over 1,500 of them have survived. They've been found in Britain to North Africa and from Spain to Syria. They were in use for about 1,000 years, which tells us something about how useful people found them. And the one I want to start with was found in London. It's catalogued as RIB 7, or Roman Inscriptions of Britain, number 7. It was made from a piece of lead taken from a building and flattened out, and then pierced with 7 nails driven through the back. Not because one nail couldn't do the job structurally, but because this was a ritual. The physical violence done to the object is part of the magic. The target of this curse is a woman named Tetria Maria. And I'm going to read you what it says. I curse Tetria Maria in her life, in her mind, in her memory, and liver and lungs mixed up together in her words, thoughts, and memory. Thus may she be unable to speak what things are concealed. That's the whole thing, and unfortunately we don't know what our girl had done to deserve such an insane curse. The assumption was that the gods already understood the situation and the context did not need to be written out. But this is not a singular case. These curse tablets appear as far back as the 5th century BCE in Greece. They started out as nothing more than a name scratched into lead, like muttering someone's name under your breath. But over time they became more elaborate and more specific, as you can see with this one here. They started calling on specific gods like Hades and Persephone, and then as Roman religion spread throughout the Mediterranean, even other gods like Yahweh and Seth. And by the time they had reached Roman Britain, they had developed their own local character. The largest single collection of these tablets that we have come from Bath. This was at the sacred spring where the Romans believed the goddess Solis Minerva presided. And between the 2nd and 4th century CE, over 130 tablets were thrown into this spring. Almost all of them were about stolen property. Which makes sense when you consider that the Romans, with all of their legal sophistication, didn't have a functioning police force. If someone stole your cloak at the baths, your options were limited. You could try to find the thief yourself or bring them to court, which costs a lot of money. Or you could do something like this. The defixiones, in the most literal sense, were outsourcing justice to a deity. And the things people chose to curse about are genuinely some of the best windows into everyday Roman life. For example, a man named Decelianus lost his cloak. He cursed the thief, and I will also read you what he said. Whether man or woman, whether slave or free, that the goddess Sola inflict death upon them and not allow them to sleep or children now and in the future until they have brought my hooded cloak to the temple of her divinity. Seems traumatic for a stolen cloak, but this is pretty on par for the Romans. There are erotic defixiones too, dozens of them. People were asking the gods to bind a lover, to prevent infidelity, or to bring children. One tablet records a man whose rival had taken a woman named Vilbia from him. His curse: may he who carried off Vilbia from me become as liquid as water. Apparently he wanted the man to dissolve into water. That was the punishment that seemed appropriate for him. One tablet from Cyprus around the 3rd century CE says this: may your penis hurt when you make love. Sometimes it's hard not to laugh. But this is what defixiones gives us that the ancient world hardly ever does. That is, people that history never wrote down. And luckily for us, they wrote themselves down and their targets. Whether the gods actually handled these situations is something we just can never prove. But we do know that people kept doing it. And they kept doing it for 1,000 years across 3 different continents. Which makes it feel like maybe they worked, or at least people thought they did. And on one last note, thank you all for 50K.